Good evening to you. He was an experienced pilot whose skills had taken him to the very top of his profession. Tonight, the pilot who died when his helicopter was involved in a dramatic crash over London this morning was named as Peter Barnes from Goddard's Green, a small village near Reading in Berkshire.
The crash happened near the River Thames at Vauxhall near Waterloo during the rush hour. The helicopter collided with a crane on top of a building and then smashed onto a road below in a fireball. One other person was killed and 12 others were injured, one critically.
Phil Hornby is live at the scene of the crash tonight. Phil, what can you tell us about this terrible tragedy and Peter Barnes, our local pilot?
Well, Fred, it was 8 o'clock this morning, just about the busiest time in one of the busiest parts of London. Thousands of people on the streets around here. Many of them, of course, commuters from our region hurrying to work. Pete Barnes was flying in foggy conditions. His helicopter had been diverted to land at Battersea Heliport not far from here when he hit the crane. There has been a suggestion there was no warning light on top of the crane. That's something investigators will be looking into. But when you see the scenes of devastation, it is perhaps remarkable that just one person on the ground was killed. One person lost their life on the ground, and of course Pete Barnes was killed too. Described today as a remarkable man. Jonathan Marland reports.
His life story reads like the characters he filmed as a contract pilot in blockbusters like Saving Private Ryan, Robert the Bruce, Golden Compass and the Bond movie Die Another Day.
We did some of the stunt work 3 weeks for a big action set where Bond is trying to chase the supposed bad girl Jinx, and we have a big helicopter sequence in that.
Among his television credits, high-end countryside documentaries and high-energy sports on the water, powerboat racing, the Round the Island race, the America's Cup and the Athens and most recently London Olympics. When he wasn't filming sports, he was taking part. An expert skier, his other interests are listed as rugby, football, squash, tennis, motorbikes and mad machines. He filmed series about air ambulances and flew air ambulances all over the country, including Kent. He won an award for outstanding courage and skill for a river rescue with the Great North Air Ambulance in 2004.
When we found out that it was Peter, obviously it was devastating news. He liked a good laugh, he liked a good joke, but he was very serious when it came to his pilotage. You know, he's a really good guy.
The sporting stunt veteran died diverted to disaster on a routine flight in bad weather. His flying career as pilot and instructor had spanned a quarter of a century. Close friends and colleagues rule out pilot error, saying he was the best flyer they ever knew. Jonathan Marland for ITV News.
Pete Barnes, one of two people who lost their lives in this terrible tragedy in London this morning. As you can see behind me, the streets around the actual crash scene are still cordoned off here in the Vauxhall area of London. But elsewhere, the city is getting back to normal. As you can imagine, the aftermath of the crash this morning led to terrible transport problems here in the capital, not least for commuters coming into Waterloo and Victoria from our region. Waterloo station was closed for a while. Services into Victoria were badly affected too. The good news is that life in the capital is getting back to normal. Waterloo and Victoria are open as normal this evening and services are running. And if you're expecting someone back from Waterloo or Victoria tonight, then you can expect them on time. Of course, the questions about this crash: how could such an experienced and accomplished pilot as Pete Barnes end his life in such a tragedy? Those questions will be answered over the next weeks and months.
Phil, thank you very much indeed.